Happy Chinese New Year! 新年快樂，恭喜發財，年年有餘，身體健康. That's about all I know. It is the year of the tiger this year, and we wanted to share some of the recipes and food that we eat because of tradition. So Chinese New Year, a lot of their food is symbolized for words that kind of sound the same. So for example, we have oranges. Oranges are very popular during Chinese New Year. They represent good health and prosperity, but the little oranges are actually called gum in Chinese, which also sounds like the word gold. So that's why oranges also represent prosperity. Although the day for Chinese New Year happened on February 1st this year, Chinese celebrations actually can last up to 2 weeks. It's a time for people to travel home to see their families and to celebrate with one another. Both Jude and my families are originally from Guangdong province in southern China, and every region and even every family will have different traditions and different types of food that they would like to eat for Chinese New Year. Jude's family migrated to Malaysia before immigrating to Canada, and my family has been in Canada for several generations. So some of the things that we do and eat for Chinese New Year may be different from other families. So even with my own family, when we gather, if we gather for Chinese New Year, we don't traditionally cook a whole chicken with head and feet, or even a whole fish. I remember one year when my mom was still living with us that I had asked her, what should we do for Chinese New Year tonight? And all I've got are chicken legs. And she's like, oh, that's fine. We'll have chicken legs, and I have some fish paste, which is like, doesn't resemble fish at all even, but it is super yummy. So here are some recipes that will help you celebrate Chinese New Year, even though they're not super traditional. A whole chicken represents prosperity and togetherness. And so traditionally, they will cook a whole chicken, including the head and the feet. And y'all know I can't be bothered. I can't even imagine cooking a whole chicken like that. So you can either cook a regular whole chicken without the head and the feet using my Hainanese chicken recipe, or you can just do this simple soy sauce chicken. I'm using 5 chicken legs here. I know you Americans call them chicken quarters. And you can use a whole chicken, use whatever you like, but our family prefers dark meat, so I am using all legs, and there's about just over 3 pounds worth of chicken here. I am cutting them into drumsticks and thighs. That's just to cut down my cook time. You can also leave them whole if you want. But we're going to bake them in the oven today instead of poaching them on the stove. I'm using a 9x13 baking pan, and I'm going to use a sheet of parchment paper. That will be easier to clean up in the end. All right, and I'm just going to arrange my chicken in the pan so that it all fits. It's like playing Tetris. Yeah. All right, you want the skin side up, and now we're just making the sauce. Super simple. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. The dark soy sauce is what's going to help give it its color. 2 tablespoons of a Shaoxing wine, which is a rice wine. And if you don't have rice wine, you can use a sherry. We've used bourbon in its place, and it's delicious. 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And about 1 tablespoon of ginger. And this is about ½ an ounce. And it's about the size of your thumb.
What kind of thumb are we talking about here?
What kind of thumb? Like, it's the same size as my thumb, sort of.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, it looked a bit swollen.
And if you don't like ginger, just omit it. Just mix up your sauce until all the sugar has dissolved. And we're just going to pour it over the chicken. I'm trying to be equal opportunity to all chicken pieces. If I haven't said it before, it doesn't take much to get really, really delicious flavors at home in a very simple way. I'm going to pop this in a preheated 400-degree Fahrenheit oven, and we're going to flip the chicken pieces over at the 20-minute mark, and then at the 40-minute mark, we're going to flip them back to skin side up, and we're going to leave it in there for another 10 minutes. So altogether, 50 minutes in the oven, flipping twice, and you will be amazed at how golden delicious it's going to be. All right, you see how the skin just does not look great. So that's why we need to flip them so that it's touching the sauce. And that, my friends, is the secret. See how this is already golden color from being on the other side? So we're just going to get the rest of the skin into the sauce. All right, back in the oven for another 20 minutes, and then we're going to flip them once more. Oh my goodness, it looks so good. When you buy it in the stores, you're not going to get all the soy sauce and the juices for your rice. You only get this at home.
And don't forget, you know exactly what went into the sauce.
Yep.
Sorry, I wasn't 100 years old though.
We're just going to spoon out a piece of thigh, drizzle some sauce on the rice. The Chinese word for fish actually sounds like the word that means surplus. And so earlier I said 年年有余, which means year after year you would have an abundance. So that's why it's important to have fish. Traditionally, a fish is cooked whole with head and tail, but this recipe just uses fillets and it'll be just as tasty. So I've got some snapper fillets today that I am using, and you can use any white fish that is like a delicate fish. So I'm thinking sea bass or haddock or snapper, sole even. Yeah, so you can give any of those a try. You know, we are of a generation where we're not enjoying the eating of the head and the bones and all the other stuff in between. So fillets are perfect for us. Steamed fish is actually one of those dishes that is often served at a wedding banquet, and it is often the most expensive, one of the most expensive dishes on the menu. I think one time we went out for dinner with my mom, and I think she paid like $90 for that fish. And I'm like, wow. Mom, like next time we don't need the fish. Like I don't need to be her spending $90 on one dish when there are like 10 other ones on its way. I'm just gonna slice up a thumb-sized piece of ginger. It's about an inch and a bit long, and I'm just gonna slice it into slivers. Very thin.
It's almost about the size of your thumb.
Almost. Okay, next I'm going to make the sauce. I'm using 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice wine, and 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. That's it for my bottle of sesame oil.
Good thing you have a whole can downstairs.
Okay, just giving it a stir. I have about 12 ounces of snapper fillets, and I'm just going to season it with a little bit of salt. So like 2 pinches of salt and some white pepper, ground white pepper that I'm also just gonna use a pinch, and we're just gonna season it. Okay, 2 pinches of this as well. Okay, we're gonna spoon the sauce over. Seriously, this is one of those recipes that if you blink, you may miss it all. Okay, using half the ginger. I'm gonna sprinkle this on kind of all over. Right, I have a wok filled with some water, and we're gonna put in a trivet, put it this way, and we're gonna put on a lid and bring that water to a boil. We want the water to be boiling quite rapidly, but not like full on. And we need to be able to create enough steam in there to steam the fish. And it won't take long. Steaming the fish will take maybe 5 minutes. All right, so the water is boiling now. I'm going to turn it down a little bit so that the water doesn't evaporate too quickly, but we still get a good amount of steam, so maybe a medium. And we're going to place the fish right on the rack. And you want to put your, like the plate that you're steaming it in is the plate that you're actually serving it in. Put the lid back on. And we're going to steam this for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to slice up my green onions. I've got 2 here. And we're going to julienne them. All right, now you've got like these fancy shredded slices of green onion. How pretty. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. We're going to test for doneness. Oh, it looks pretty done. So to test for doneness, you can use a chopstick, just poke the thickest part, and if it goes through easily, your fish is done. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we're just gonna lift it up, set it aside. Okay, I have a frying pan here. I'm just gonna heat it up on high. Okay, adding 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil and tossing in our ginger. And half of the green onions. Choosing actually to cook up some of the white part of the green onion. I'm just going to cook this for about 30 seconds. We're going to take the other green onion and sprinkle it over the fish. I'm going to turn this off and pour it right onto the fish. Let's put some of the green onions up on there first. The steam time will be dependent on the thickness of your fillet. So this was maybe ½ an inch and I cooked it for 5 minutes. If it's thicker, you're gonna have to cook it for a little bit longer. It doesn't take long though. Noodles are eaten for Chinese New Year because it represents longevity, so the longer the noodles, the better. I'm starting with ½ a pound of chow mein noodles. I've already blanched them and rinsed them under cold water to stop the cooking, but also to remove some of the starches because I'm going to be stir frying this chow mein. Now this noodle comes in a bag like this. I think they're cooked and dried, and then you just buy them and you kind of rehydrate them, because on the back it'll give you instructions on how to prepare your noodles for the different things. Like, you know, it's always preparing the noodles the same, and whether you use it in a soup or in pan-fried noodles or in a stir-fried noodles, there is a way to kind of, I guess, bring them back to life before you use them. I found these in the refrigerated section of the Asian market, and you can find a variety of different types of chow mein noodles. These are the thin chow mein noodles. You can get thicker ones if you prefer that. You can use those. I didn't check the dried section to see if they had dried chow mein. I don't think I've ever seen it. I usually just buy the ones in the refrigerator. I'm using half an onion that I'm going to slice up. And I like to slice from top to bottom. Just find that they hold its shape better when I'm cooking. I'm using green Chinese chives today. In this particular dish, we often find it with yellow chives in the restaurants, but the yellow chives were like $12 a pound. And I'm like, I'm not paying $12 a pound. So we got these for $3 a pound. You don't need much. I would say about a quarter size amount. I'm just going to cut these up into 2-inch pieces. These chives are garlicky in flavor, but if you can't find chives, you can always use just green onions and use about maybe 4 or 5 stalks of green onion in its place, and it will be just as tasty. I'm using 4 ounces of bean sprouts that I have already rinsed and set aside. Starting with 1 teaspoon of sugar. I'm just using regular sugar. You can use brown sugar if you like. Adding 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. This is light soy sauce or just regular soy sauce. 2 tablespoons of the dark soy sauce. And dark soy is not as salty as regular soy. It's actually a little bit sweet, and we are using it basically for its color, but still a little bit of soy sauce flavor. If you don't have dark soy, I would use more regular soy and maybe a little bit more sugar. I'm also using 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce. And this is where the noodles gets its umami flavor. It's a new bottle, so I'm having trouble just getting it out. Good enough. About a 1/4 teaspoon of ground white pepper and 1 tablespoon of water. Just stir this around, make sure that that sugar at the bottom is dissolved. A whisk might actually do better here as I have this like white pepper clumping together. Oh my goodness, so much faster. It's me not wanting to wash too many things, so I try to just get everything done with what I've got out. Okay, heating up my wok on medium-high heat. This dish is so simple to make, and it can go with so many things. Of course, you can have it on its own, but it is great with like orange chicken or General Tso's chicken or beef and broccoli. Like all of those recipes you can find in my cookbook, Chinese Homestyle, and this dish would go perfect with those. As soon as you start to see your wok smoke, that's when you add your oil. So we're adding a tablespoon of cooking oil. I'm using canola oil today, but you can use vegetable oil or whatever oil you want to use that is kind of neutral in flavor. Adding the onions. I'm gonna cook this for about a minute or 2, just to soften them up a little bit. It's really important to have all your ingredients ready to go because this recipe is super fast. Okay. Adding bean sprouts. Just for about 30 seconds or so. And we're adding our noodles. And you'll find like the noodles are loose. They're not like super sticky. And that's what happens when you kind of blanch them and you discard this, you rinse it under cold water to discard some of that starch. I'm just going to move some of the vegetables up top. I'm going to get the noodles down to the bottom. I'm going to drizzle about a tablespoon of oil just around the edge so that we can get the noodles a little bit crispy as it slides down the edge of the wok. And we're just going to let this sit for about a minute or two so that we can get some crispiness on the noodles. I'm going to move the noodles around. Okay, and we're adding our sauce. Look at that color. So pretty.
Good.
So this dish is often served in Hong Kong style cafes for breakfast. You can have it with congee or some other kind of soupy dish to go with the noodles on the side. It's also found in dim sum restaurants for lunch. That is just an extra tasty dish to have. Adding the chives. And we just want to cook this until it's all wilted. Right, turning off the heat. Look at that. Looks so good. I literally don't know what my problem is. I always forget to tell you guys to add the sesame oil when I'm still stir frying. So, doesn't matter. Sesame oil for the win. Right on top. So we like to eat dumplings, and dumplings are also great as a family activity to wrap dumplings together. The dumplings kind of look like the old Chinese currency, which are called ingots, and dumplings would represent prosperity and wealth. We are making dumplings today, which should be fun. I don't make the wrappers from scratch. I have a friend who taught me how, and I'm just like, I so can't do this. But I can make the filling, and we can wrap them up.
Sounds good.
And we can cook them. I'm just chopping up some green onion. I have 3 stalks of green onion. And I'm using about 7 ounces or 200 grams of Savoy cabbage. And you can use regular cabbage, or you can use Napa. Napa is generally what I think they use in dumplings, but I'm just using what I have. And as far as I'm concerned, cabbage is cabbage. I think it'll be fine. You want to chop this up into small bits, kind of like around the same size as the green onions. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but that's what I'm going to do. So you kind of want to shred it. If you don't want to chop it by hand, you can just use a food processor and pulse it in there to get like little bits. It's up to you, whatever you want, whatever makes it easier. I have a pound of lean ground pork. That's about 500 grams. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of water. That just helps to keep the pork moist. Let's just get this started. Adding all the cabbage and the green onions. Just stir that in. I think the stirring is the part that takes the most effort. And you want it to be sticky. So right now it's not quite sticky yet. It's just trying to put everything together. So it seems a little bit dry to me still. So I'm going to add another 2 tablespoons of water. And I'm going to keep stirring. So I have about, I want to say it's a thumb-sized piece of ginger, but maybe you'll want about a tablespoon of grated ginger. I'm just going to grate this right in to the mixture.
That's a pretty big thumb.
All right, a giant thumb. And they say that you're supposed to stir in one direction only. I don't know what the purpose of that is. My mom told me that too. Who are they?
And who are they?
I don't know. They. I'm going to add the rest of my ingredients and stir some more. I have about a teaspoon of brown sugar. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. You know, these bottles are not very good, but it's been like the same bottle forever.
They haven't changed since forever.
I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of rice wine. And 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. Right, we'll keep stirring.
I would totally help, but
I know,
I'm
man
sick.
flu and all. I don't know if you can tell, but the texture is stickier now.
Well, more so after you incorporating the
rest
sauces.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, you want it to be sticky. And one last thing, an egg.
Starting to get sticky.
Super sticky now. All right, I think we're good. So I'm just using these store-bought wrappers. They come in a package like this. I don't know if you can get them smaller, but this is what I found at the store. And I don't think I can go through all of them. So we'll just start with this. And you want a little bowl of water, because that's what's going to help seal the edges. And I'm not a fancy dumpling wrapper, so just going to use about a tablespoon of mixture. You don't want to fill them up too much, because if you do, they'll burst. So we don't want to do that. So we just want to dampen the edge and bring them together, and you can just seal them. Just make sure that it's tight all the way around. So you just want to make sure that it's completely sealed, that the filling isn't going to ooze out. And then we're just going to put that on a plate. This one I might have filled too much. All right, since the sickie is hungry, we're just gonna cook some of them and do the taste, show them what they look like and how to cook them, and I'll finish the rest later. But you should be able to make, I want to say 40 or 50 dumplings, but right now I have 15 and I still have a lot of meat left. So maybe I will go through all the wrappers.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't make them that often, so I don't really remember how many I can make, but I want to say 50.
Woo!
Whoa. You know why? Because you pressed it down.
Oh, I released the gas, you know?
Yeah.
That was dramatic.
Yeah, good thing I was standing away from it. As the water is boiling, you want to gently drop the dumplings in. You're going to cook them for about 5 minutes. All right, so it's been 5 minutes. Now I'm going to pour in 1 cup of cold water and wait for that to come to a boil again, and then they're ready. All right, turning off the heat. And we're just going to use
this ladle to scoop them out, to drain them. You know, if you don't like pork, you can always use ground chicken or ground turkey for this recipe as well. And yeah, just play around with the different ingredients. You know the basics, and you can just move from there.
Happy New Year to you and your family. Wishing you all good health this year of the tiger.